Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. We are at opening day of the 2042 season, 8-4 victory for the Buffalo Wings over the Philadelphia Phillies as we take a first step in trying to defend our World Championship. If you've been looking closely, you may notice that our total money available is down. That's because we have made an offer to reunite with an old friend, Bobby Bolig, who we traded away, I think, over 4 years ago to the Colorado Rockies, is still a free agent. He had been looking for over $10 million a year initially. I think it was around 13, then it was around 10. You can see his demand is down to 2.6 million. And we offered him a minor league contract that will guarantee him $2 million if he is added to the 26-man major league roster. He's got the ability to opt out after 30 days if we don't promote him to the majors. I think for the kind of money he'd be making at $2 million for the season, for a player who's still a very good bunter, pretty good speed, proficient on the base paths, and still has pretty strong ratings against right-handed pitching. Even though he's fragile physically and he's a pretty mediocre defensive outfielder, as a potential insurance policy and as another accomplished left-handed bat, which we're somewhat short of right now, I think it's worth putting this offer out here. I'm kind of inclined to just put him in AAA and not guarantee the $2 million unless we need it. But we'll see what happens. No guarantees that he's going to sign with us, but given that he's been on the market for well over 4 or 5 months at this point, who knows what's going to happen. And Bolig did sign with us. I played a couple games in AA Utica. We promoted him to AAA Albany. We'll have to decide what to do with him. If we were to bring him up to the majors, the logical move would be to send down Tylen Hotaling, 0 for 2 in just 3 games, the final left-handed bat that made our roster. Hotaling probably potentially a bigger part of our future, but looking at his ratings at this point, Bobby Bolig, a little more gap power, a little more power, and definitely a much better eye. Hotaling a little better with contact and much better in terms of avoiding strikeouts. Neither is great defensively. Hotaling is durable rather than fragile like Bolig. But I think at this point, Bolig probably still a bit better major league hitter against right-handed pitching. So certainly conceivable that Bolig will be on the major league roster at some point. And the month of April is in the books. The Buffalo Wings at 14-8 are tied for second in the National League East, 1 game behind the Miami Marlins, playing better of late. We've won 5 in a row after a relatively slow start when we were kind of around 500 for most of the first half plus of the month. Interesting that we don't see Deshaun Seifu on the stolen base leaderboard at all. In fact, we don't really see too many offensive players from our Buffalo Wings on the leaderboard, period. Alexis Barajas, our ace, 3-1 with a 1.57 ERA, almost a strikeout per inning, so he's having another solid season for us at this point. Take an initial quick look at how we're doing statistically. That 14-8 record actually one better than Pythagorean expectations. Very middle of the pack offensively, 9th in the National League in runs scored, and you can see we're middle of the pack of a lot of categories, tied for 12th in home runs this year, so the offense definitely not as good as it was a year ago. Pitching-wise, we still have the number 1 pitching team in terms of the fewest runs allowed in the National League, 4th in our starters ERA, 5th in our bullpen ERA. You can see we are in the top handful in every pitching category in the National League, 6th in defensive efficiency, 1st in zone rating, and we're still 3rd overall in stolen bases. Check in on Mr. Seifu, would assume he still leads the team. Does have 7 of our 17 steals, but 7 stolen bases and 4 caught stealings is not the type of success rate we're accustomed to seeing from Mr. Seifu. The batting average has also dipped to 233 and just an 81 WRC plus. He's actually been slightly below replacement level, so the 37, soon to be 38-year-old in a little over a month, may be finally hitting the wall as far as his performance. As we sit here on May 1st, he's still 235 hits away from joining the 3,000 hit club, and he's still about 245 stolen bases away from passing Ricky Henderson for the all-time lead in that category. So hopefully he gets the batting average up from the 230s. He's been in the 270s the last 4 years after he was a perennial 300 hitter for much of the core of his excellent career. Still think, given that he's an Iron Man as far as his injury proneness, odds are we'll be able to get him to 3,000 hits. Question whether he is going to actually catch the Man of Steel, though, as far as most career stolen bases in Major League Baseball. And the Wings have been playing really well over these first 12 days of May. The record is now 21-11. We are tied for first place with the Marlins now. We've won 4 in a row, 2 up on the Nationals in the National League East. Bobby Bolig did end up opting out of the contract. We had thought about promoting him, but wanted to kind of keep the flexibility of not having to make a big commitment to him. So he's back on the open market now, and it says that he's just looking for a minor league contract with a signing bonus right now. So that's even better as far as I'm concerned than guaranteeing him $2 million if we put him on the major league team. We'll go ahead and meet his demand and submit that offer. Don't know whether he'll go for it or not, but certainly would love the optionality to be able to keep him in the minors and then bring him up in the majors if we need him. He did, not surprisingly, hit very well in AAA. Checking in on Tylen Hotaling, whose spot he would take. Very small sample size. Hotaling just 15 at-bats, is 6 for 15, so he's batting 400, 186 WRC plus, so he's been a useful bat for us in the limited amount of playing time he's been getting as our 5th outfielder and an occasional pinch hitter. And Bobby Bolig did re-sign with us to that minor league contract with the bonus. Don't really understand why he would have opted out of a deal that would have given him $2 million if he was going to be on the majors, because now he'll be making the major league minimum if we do promote him up there. But we have him in our system in AAA for the course of this season, so I think that's an excellent insurance policy for us if we have some injuries or just decide that we're ultimately going to want an extra left-handed bat on the roster for September or possibly even in the playoffs. And another big month in the book for the Buffalo Wings. Record stands at 33-17 here on June 1st. Taking a look at the standings, we're up 2 games on the Marlins and 4 on the Nationals. Looking at the NL leaderboard, definitely does not seem like Deshaun Seifu is going to lead the league in steals for a 15th straight year. He's not one of the top 3 in the league at this point. Pitching-wise, though, Alexis Barajas is 3rd in the National League with ERA. Our recent addition right before the season started for the rotation of Floyd Auclair, 8-0 record, the most wins in the league, and a 1.11 ridiculous ERA with 68 strikeouts and 48 2/3 innings. Just hasn't pitched enough innings to qualify for the ERA title. His 2 WAR this season thus far is the second best among National League pitchers. Taking a look at our news, Auclair was 6-0 with a ridiculous 0.60 ERA in the month of May to be named the National League Pitcher of the Month. Not surprisingly, when we take a look at our team statistics, We are still a very good pitching team, second in the National League in runs allowed. And you can see, with the exception of ninth and BABIP, we are first or second in the National League in every pitching category. Middle of the pack in defensive efficiency, first in zone rating. The offense has improved. We're now fourth in the National League in runs scored. Middle of the pack, tied for seventh in home runs. Pretty good on the base path still. Third in stolen bases, second in base running overall. See where Seifu stands. And 18 steals and 25 attempts, so still reasonably proficient on the base paths. Has got the batting average up to 304. But as I mentioned, definitely seems like his streak of having led the National League in steals for 14 consecutive seasons will come to an end. Hopefully our team's streak of 14 consecutive years in the playoffs won't come to an end this year. Jim Andrews, our starting shortstop, is out with a pending injury, so that is potentially a non-optimal development. We should find out what will happen with him in relatively short order. You can see we've been selling out most of our games except for a few when I'm guessing the weather was not fantastic. So we're going to increase the ticket price by just a quarter, see if we can generate a little bit more revenue here. And we'll wait to find out what's going on with Andrews' injury. Hopefully it's not serious. Besides that, we've got the first-year player draft coming up in just about 3 weeks. And we'll probably sim up through that and then find out who's going to be available for us with our first-round pick before we complete and finish up this episode. And fortunately, Andrews' injury was not serious. Bruised shoulder that's going to have him day-to-day for about 3 days, so not a major issue at all. And a little bit of disappointing news finally. The first significant injury of the year. Starting second baseman Alejandro Contreras going to be out 3 to 4 weeks with plantar fasciitis. Hitting .243 this year, 5 homers, 16 ribbies, and 177 at-bats. Does hit 15 doubles, so he's been an above-average offensive player with a 104 WRC+. Like the offense that we've been getting out of him, even though would certainly appreciate it if that batting average was a bit higher. Do feel like we're well suited with Whitehead on the team, who hasn't been playing as regularly, to slide right in. And it should also give us an opportunity to bring Mr. Frank up from AAA potentially for a few weeks, since we wanted to ensure he was getting more playing time down there. So not a critical injury. And a little bit of good news, we recently ran a scouting report on our young catcher, Juan Ramirez, who you may remember we picked up this past off season as an international free agent for $4.5 million. He's now viewed as the number 91 prospect in baseball. Our concern with him is his contact, and based on this recent scouting report, we think he's kind of maxed out at 45 out of 45 contact, but if you remember, he was a 35 out of 45 after we had gotten our initial scouting reports on him. So we kind of felt that if he got up to close to league average contact with his really good eye and plate discipline and potentially plus power, durability, and good defense, he could potentially be a guy that would be our starting catcher next year, with both Houlihan and Miller headed to potential free agency. So with the fact that his contact seems to be coming along well, I think the chance of Ramirez being our starting catcher next year, and quite honestly possibly being the backup behind Houlihan rather than Miller by the time we get to September or the playoffs, is certainly possible. Hitting just .244 in AAA Utica, but does have 13 homers and 168 at-bats, put up a 141 WRC+. We'll probably be moving him to AAA in the next couple of weeks, but he had really good relationships with our hitting coach and our manager in AA Utica. Fine relationships in AAA as well, but they were a little better in Utica, so probably we'll keep him down here another couple weeks into July. and then move him up to AAA at that point. And if we end up having any injuries at catcher between Houlihan or Miller, would certainly think that Ramirez could be in the mix to be in the majors. And we decided we're going to keep Mr. Frank in AAA. I brought up Jake Bailey, who he had signed a couple of years ago to a minor league contract. He's just been organizational depth for us in AAA the past few years. Not a hitter at all at this point, but a decent guy who can play second or short for us if Whitehead or Andrews needs an occasional day off with quality defense. Wanted to ensure that we kept getting regular playing time for Mr. Frank, who we're trying to train up a bit at second base. When we picked up Frody Broders last year, there was a suggestion made to try him at third base in one of the comments. I was a little reticent to try it, given that he is a left-handed thrower, which is not optimal for a third baseman, particularly, or most infielders. And at this point, you can see that even though we've been playing him at third base all year, he has no rating at the position. He really has no capability to play that position. Looking at his fielding stats, it's been an absolute disaster. 879 fielding percentage, minus 11.2 zone rating, and 790 defensive efficiency. Clearly, as a left-hander, he's just not capable of playing that position at a professional level. So we're going to stop force starting him there, which will certainly help our defense. Broders is hitting 289, 16 homers and 39 ribbies and 232 at-bats, 142 WRC plus. Would love if he could do something besides play first base or DH, but unfortunately, looking at his profile, I think those are the only two options for his future. And we've made it to the first year player draft, so we're going to run the first round up to our pick shortly and then see who's available before finishing up the episode. Checking in on the standings, though, 45-23 record, 662 winning percentage, tied with the Guardians for the second best in baseball. But the 48-19 Dodgers are having an incredible season, 3.5 games better than either Buffalo or Cleveland. We are now 5 games up on the Mets and 6.5 up on the Marlins in the NL East. You can see hitting-wise, still nobody on the leaderboard. Deshaun Seifu does have 26 steals at this point. So although he's not in the top 3, he's only 8 behind Mike Karras to lead the league in steals. Taking a look at Karras' speed, the 26-year-old is similar profile to Seifu, actually quite a little bit better at stealing bases than Seifu at this point. So it will probably be tough to catch him if he's healthy for the entire year. Karras is only hitting 239, though, but we'd also have to get by Bobby Bethea and Jaheim Lawal, as well as possibly others. Pitching-wise, Alexis Barajas with that 2.05 ERA continues to lead the league in ERA. He leads the league in ERA now. He was in the top 3 much of the season. Barajas now with 9 wins, leads the league in wins as well. Floyd Auclair, the record 8-2 now with a 1.64 ERA, so he's also done really well for us. But Barajas leading the league in ERA and wins, probably somewhat well positioned to get some Cy Young Award votes. Has won the award once in his career. He ranks 3rd in the National League, or actually tied for 2nd in the National League with a 2.4 pitcher WAR. Behind 8-2 Harlan Campeau of the Dodgers, who struck out 135 this year, which leads the league. So some good pitching for our Buffalo Wings. Take a quick look at the team statistics here, or we'll look at the news here first, since I don't know how to click properly. Going back to the team statistics now, our 45-23 record, just 1 game above Pythagorean expectations, 5th in the National League in runs scored, so in the top 3rd of the league there. and first in the National League in runs allowed. So things seem to be working pretty well for the Buffalo Wings here in 2042. Taking a look at the first-year player draft, although we were the world champions last year and were a 100-win team last year, there were 3 teams, the Padres, Mariners, and Guardians, that won more games than us in the regular season. So we'll be picking 30th in this upcoming draft, which is actually earlier than we picked for our first pick in many recent years, with a lot of real strong regular seasons. Unlike last season, we don't have any supplemental picks this year. So our one shot in the top 60 or 70 selections is going to be 30 overall. And we won't be going again until the 66th pick of the draft. Actually, no, it's going to be worse than that. 33 plus 6 is 39. Plus 30 is 69, dude. That will be our second pick of the draft in the second round. So we'll see who is available at number 30. We will go ahead and we'll get the draft started. We'll auto draft into our pick. And now let's see what is available at the top end of the market, at least according to our scout. Taking a look at the batters who are on the board, 2 5-star potential players. Catcher C.J. Jacobs, looks like incredible home run power potential. Not a very good defensive catcher in terms of what we think he could do. Doesn't really look like he's capable of playing anywhere than a mediocre defensive catcher, though. I guess at 6'4", we could play him at first base. Could play him in left field if we had to. Certainly that potential 60 contact and 75 home run power is an intriguing combination. Don't know if that's a direction we'll go. Would like to know more about some of these other options before we start thinking about choices. And at this time of year, it's always helpful to hear what the viewers are thinking as we go through some of these options for us. Third baseman Bob Klein is the other 5-star prospect. He's got a real nice arm. His range and his error ratings aren't particularly impressive. He is durable. Looks like he could have a plus bat. Not the most exciting prospect in the world, but certainly someone to consider. And then there are also 4 4-star potential prospects. First baseman Jesse Menier, looks like a typical first baseman. Good contact, good home run power, durable. Not great defensively. Not a ton of speed. Third baseman Josh Nembhard. Looks like a third baseman in terms of his defensive profile. Could also certainly play first base with his 6'5" height. That's probably a bit of a more natural position for him given his ratings, although he does have a decent arm, but not an ideal third base arm. Another guy who looks like he could have a above average bat if everything works out. Durable, does have a good work ethic. Jake Shannon, first baseman, another guy who looks like he could have a plus bat, durable, slow, not a lot of defense. And Mike Yaki, a shortstop, high leadership and adaptability, also high greed, capable of playing multiple defensive positions in the infield or in the outfield. Looks like he could have an interesting bat, potentially excellent eye in terms of drawing walks, with decent home run power, decent avoiding strikeouts, and contact and gap power a little bit above average. If that infield range and some of those error ratings improved a little bit and he could be a somewhat more productive middle infielder, that bat is interesting with that great eye as a guy who's most likely a third baseman or a corner outfielder. I don't know if the bat is quite what I'd ideally want at that point, but Yaki, certainly a guy to think about. I guess I might as well, for the sake of completeness, look at the 3.5-star prospects here. To another shortstop, Jaffnell Cook. Looks like a decent bat for an infielder. Really more of a natural third baseman in terms of those ratings. Don't hate him. Danny Ferguson, 21-year-old shortstop out of Delta State. He actually looks kind of interesting. The defense with that 65 range is one of the better ones out there. We think he could have a plus bat, and given that he's 21 years old and a college player, he's pretty reasonably developed already, has a high work ethic. The competition level at Delta State is only fair, so I don't love that, but a guy who looks like he could be when you put the whole package together, if he fully develops, bit above average offensive player with 65 range and a 65 arm, high work ethic. I don't hate him as a prospect, that's for sure. Chris Odom, another college player, a center fielder, really more of a corner outfielder with those ratings. Looks like his bat could be a bit above average, pretty decent contact, but not a ton of speed. Jamie Rush, corner outfielder, mediocre defensively, durable, left-handed hitter, good contact, not going to strike out much. If he fully develops, could be a useful-ish bat. And then Josh Weed, a center fielder out of UVA. Like the range, a little bit of speed, although he's not a particularly adept base stealer and pretty average base runner. Is durable. Looks like the bat could be a bit above average if he fully develops. So there's batters to certainly think about. Taking a look at the pitchers, we'll take a look at the 6 guys who are 3.5 stars or higher, although the first 3 look like relievers, at least in terms of what they're called. Chris Warrior, like the high work ethic, 18-year-old out of Arlington, Virginia, committed to Mississippi State. Looks like he could be a pretty interesting reliever. Don't think we would take him 30 overall. Joe Morris, another guy, looks like he's a definite reliever. A couple of negative personality traits, but certainly looks like he could be a useful right-handed arm in the bullpen. Again, probably not the type of guy we're going to take in the first round. Sean Dunning, really interesting profile here. Another guy with a few negative personality traits coming out of Texas State. Left-handers faced good competition. Think that all 3 of these relievers could be useful major leaguers down the line. Don't think we're going to take any of them 30th overall. There are 3 guys who are theoretical starters with 4-star potential. Caleb Sanders, 17-year-old out of Ruleville, Mississippi. If that changeup develops, he could be a starter. Would prefer it be a little bit of a better pitch, but with an excellent potential fastball and splitter mixed with a mediocre changeup, probably still could start. Stuff could be off the charts, particularly as a reliever. I don't know that I'd take him at number 30 because I don't know if he's going to be more than a reliever, but certainly looks like he could be a pretty interesting right-handed reliever down the line. Chris Flick, another 17-year-old, another guy who's really dependent on that changeup developing to become a major league starter. If it does, has a profile that looks like he could be a really good one. 17 years old, already throwing in the mid-90s. And last but maybe not least, Luis Centino. He's a guy who looks like he's going to be a definite starter. The slider, if that develops, he's a 3-pitch guy. He also, in theory, has a changeup. Don't know that that's going to be big enough. He's committed to Tennessee. Great stamina, not so great at holding on runners. Do like the high work ethic. Another 17-year-old throwing in the mid-90s. Incredible movement on his pitches with ground ball tendencies. Shouldn't give up many homers. Plus stuff and plus control as well. think he is definitely an interesting prospect. First glance, if I was going to go with a pitcher, it would probably be Centino. The batters are definitely more mixed. I'm not going to lie, I'm intrigued by Danny Ferguson. I don't love the only fair competition level at Delta State, especially given that, he struggled to hit 300 at a less than major college baseball program. But our scout is a pretty darn good scout, and those defensive ratings, again, with a guy that we think could be a slightly above average offensive player, is a pretty interesting potential prospect. You can see why he's still available, though, because the OSA is much lower on him in terms of his ultimate potential as well as where he is today. So this is definitely a situation where our scout has an opinion that is contrary to the conventional wisdom. Means he could be an incredible value for us. It also means maybe our scout is wrong, but it also means maybe Ferguson is a guy who could slide to the second round if we go in a different direction, simply because other teams, particularly with what the scouting combine has ratings on him, may not be as interested. Don't know if he's ultimately the guy that I like the most, that I'm willing to gamble that he'll still be around 39 picks from now. But we should have some interesting decisions ahead of us. I'll be spending more time offline with the draft. If there are any thoughts that you have based on the real quick high-level overview of the players that I provided on the direction we should go, would love to hear them in the comments. It's been a good year thus far for our Buffalo Wings, and in our next episode we will complete the 2042 draft and see how everyone on the team is actually performing when we get to the midway point of the season. It's been a good start so far, but we usually like to use that mid-season check-in as a chance to kind of put a plan together for what we might want to do as the trade deadline gets closer. It's about 6 weeks away at this point. We've got about $6.5 million to take on some contracts if that's a direction we decide to go. Taking a look at the trading block. Doesn't look like batting-wise like there's any hugely regarded hitters available. And then pitching-wise, doesn't look like there's any guys that are going to massively move the needle for us who are available. I mean, our guy Ben Borjan, who's been in AAA for the last couple years, is one of the better regarded pitchers on the list of players who are on the trading block, and we certainly haven't had a lot of teams making us offers on him. So it's early. It's only mid-June. So there probably will be some more interesting players being put on the trading block over the next few weeks as teams either fall out of contention or decide that they can't get an extension signed with somebody and they don't want to risk only getting a draft pick in compensation if the player moves on as a free agent this offseason. So could be a little more movement in terms of the trade block. At 45 and 23, we don't have a ton of obvious holes to fill, but certainly we'll be looking as how to improve this team over the next 6 weeks or so of game time. But as I mentioned, the primary goal when we come back in our next episode is to do the draft and our mid-season review. And that's what we will focus on next time around. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.